Ugh. God, I look like my dad. Mac Engel, Fort Worth Star Telegram Engel Angle podcast here in the Sunset Lounge. It goes without saying, I'm always excited to introduce my guest for this episode because this is not the example of don't meet your heroes. I'm happy to say that when I met this guest, he exceeded all of my expectations. My guest for this episode is best-selling author Jeff Pearlman, who's not just a sports writer, mind you. And when I was introduced to Jeff's name, probably like a lot of us, it was through a rather infamous interview and story that he wrote about then Atlanta Braves reliever John Rocker. This was back in the 90s. And John said a whole bunch of things that made you go, really, huh? And it eventually led to his suspension, a brief suspension from Major League Baseball. Jeff Pearlman was the writer, and all he did was write the truth. And that's one of the reasons why I admire Jeff so much, is that he doesn't really care what you think as long as it's true. And Jeff always does go for the truth. I met Jeff, and just coincidentally, I actually covered John Rocker when he was with the Texas Rangers in 2002. And needless to say, John's relationship towards the media by then was a little frosty. He was nice to me, he was fine, but I wouldn't necessarily call him chatty. He was fine, though, clearly at the end of his career. A couple years later, I did meet Jeff Pearlman in that same locker room, the Texas Rangers locker room. He was in DFW working on one of his eventually best-selling books. And that particular book was Three-Ring Circus, which was about the Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal dynasty LA Lakers. And I went up and I introduced myself, and I'm happy to say that Jeff could not have been any nicer. Very kind, very professional, very engaging. You never know. And he was all those things. And I was happy to get to know him a little bit. I've had him on this podcast before years ago when he had another book out. Or actually, that's when he had the HBO series about a different book that he wrote about the Lakers, coincidentally. That was about the Showtime Lakers. But Jeff is a lot more than just a sports writer. He's really creative. He's one of the few guys really in writing who has created a name for himself. There's not many of those guys out there anymore. It's become obviously an increasingly niche field. I would say I would put Jeff in the same category as John Krakauer, maybe Hampton Sides. There's some other ones who are there, but there's not many of them, and certainly Jeff is. And one of the reasons why Jeff has a name and is so established is his fearlessness to interview everybody. If he picks a topic, he will find anybody and everybody who has any relationship to that topic, no matter how tangential or seemingly inconsequential. If they've had any time or exposure to that subject, Jeff wants to talk to him, and he does. And quite frankly, it's really inspiring to me. Now, he also has a YouTube channel that I highly recommend. That's called the Press Box Chronicles, and Jeff is loaded with great stories about his sports writing career, and he comes across some really good ones. Also, it would go without saying if I didn't mention some of the other books, best-selling books that he's written. Showtime, that's about the Magic Johnson Dynasty Lakers in the 80s. That was eventually converted into a really good HBO series. It was on for 2 seasons rather. I thought it deserved to go longer than that, but you never know. That was a really good series, and the book was terrific. Three-Ring Circus, as I mentioned before. Boys Will Be Boys. That was his best-selling book about the 1990s era Dallas Cowboys. Sweetness. A book about former Chicago Bears running back Walter Payton. It's very good. Football for a Buck, a best-selling book about the Donald Trump era that was the USFL. His timing on this, Jeff's timing on Football for a Buck couldn't have been any better because it came out right around the same time that Trump's ascension politically was happening. And the other one, along with other titles, is Gunslinger. That's about former Green Bay Packers quarterback Brett Favre. Now he has a new book out, and it is not about sports. It is Only God Can Judge Me, and this is a book about the late hip-hop artist Tupac Shakur. Jeff had told me once that this was a book that he wanted to do, and I wasn't really sure if he was going to do it. But Jeff is big enough that he can have a conversation with a publisher or an agent and say, I think I want to do this. And they'll say, okay, go for it. He went for it. It's out on shelves now. You probably see Jeff relentlessly and tirelessly promoting this new book, and as well as anything else he does, because that's what you got to do. Anyways, without further ado, my guest, Mr. Jeff Pearlman.
He's better
I don't
selling a
think
shitload of books.
I don't think we want to do the direct to conversions, direct to sales from this podcast appearance to your book sales. I only request that we not look that up. Is that all right?
That's fine. I just want to say, Mac, every author has a moment when they've hit the low, when they've hit the bottom of their PR schedule, and they're just like scratching and clawing for anything, right? And you think you hit that low when, you're out on the corner of whatever, giving handjobs for $5 if they buy your book. And then you think you've hit the low when you're like showing leg on a corner, hoping they just find you attractive and then buy your book. Here I am, man. Here I am right here.
This might be it. What is I have one of everybody has one of these, and I don't know if I've asked you this or I've heard you share this story. What is your most humiliating book sales experience, appearance, or anything like that? What's the one where it just humiliation took its 2x4 right to your face?
I have many, but I would say it actually took place in your state there. I was in, I did a book signing in Fort Hood, for my Dallas Cowboys book. And I was in Dallas promoting the book, Boys Will Be Boys. And my publicist said, we've arranged a great event for you, Fort Hood, Texas. They're going to have you out, blah, blah, blah. Great event. A lot of people. I was like, well, that sounds great. I drive out to Fort Hood. I'm greeted by a guy. And this is even when I was less known than I am now. And I'm not even that known now. I'm just a writer. I'm greeted by a guy who says to me, we don't get many celebrities around here. And I was thinking, oh no, this is going to be fun. And I was picturing a room where they put you in a room with a bunch of soldiers and they hand out books. It's kind of a nice chat. No, they have like a Walmart on the base, a Walmart type building. They put me in front with a stack of books as high as a skyscraper. And someone gets on the PA system and goes, attention customers, Pearlman is selling his book, Jeff Pearlman. I was there for 4 hours and I sold 3 books. Halfway through, I went under the table, not joking, like this. And I called my wife and I go, I need to get the fuck out of here. And I couldn't escape. You got a good one?
Yeah. I'm always really proud of this one because I had already written a book before, and the books that you're writing, although some of them I've only done 4, and mine are probably a little bit more original. Only. So I had done one, and I had a publisher. He said, hey, I have an event at SMU. It's on, it was in November, and I want to say it was after Black Friday. It was already after, or maybe it was it was the weekend before Black Friday. Okay. And SMU had a home football game, and SMU was okay. It was doing okay, but I had lived here long enough to know what an SMU home football game brought in back then. And they were going to do it at the bookstore, which is right in Barnes & Noble. You know it. Okay, they're going to do it at the Barnes & Noble. They're just basically on campus, and I'm going to be there for 2 hours, and the marketing person's very excited about it. And I had already done a few of these to know what to expect. So I had said to the publisher, I said, can I please not do this? I said, nobody's going to be there, because I knew SMU. And again, what SMU is now isn't what it is, what it was then. This was back in 15 or whatever year. I don't know what year it was. And anyways, no, it was back in 2008. Anyways, so I basically, Jeff, I begged the guy, and he said, hey, look, you signed the contract. And I said, you know what? You're right. I'll go. I'll make the best of it. So I know going in 5 people, maybe. So I get to the Barnes & Noble ahead of time. It's going to go from 11 to 1. The marketing person meets me. Man, she was so excited. She's so jazzed up. And I turn the corner there in the Barnes & Noble, and she has lined up rows of chairs. Right?
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then there's a desk with a stack of my books. This was one about Texas Stadium, and I'm still I still have, a love-hate relationship with all that. So, and I look at it and I go, oh no. There was an older woman waiting for me when I was there. So I'm there at 10:50. I sign it for her. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I sit down. Nobody shows up for 2 hours.
Did you stay the whole time?
And the poor, I felt bad. I felt so bad for the marketing person because she felt bad for me. And I don't know if you've had, I'm sure you've had those moments where customers walk by and they give you that awkward
Oh,
look.
it's the worst.
And so I have and luckily I had a sense of humor about it then. And I thought, well, this will be a good story. And it has been a great story. And so I was like, well, and she was so apologetic. So on my way out, another woman comes up and says, oh, you haven't left yet. And I'm like, there you are. So she bought one and I sold two. Yeah, right.
Do you know John Wertheim at all? Have you met John?
I know of him. I think we've traded emails. I have a tremendous amount of respect for his work. I mean, he's got this weird niche in terms of tennis in 60 Minutes. It's like it's this weird combination. But no, I've never had a chance to actually visit with him.
He's a very good friend. I met my wife at his wedding, actually. We're very good
wow.
friends. And he did a book about Indiana basketball once. And they lined up a couple of book events at Indiana at different stores. And he goes to the store and he shows up and the store is out of business. It's out of business. And he calls the publisher, his publicist, and he goes, I'm here at the store, but the store doesn't exist. And the publicist says, that's so weird. They've always been really good to us in the past.
Sam Farmer has a good one. Sam Farmer of the LA Times. I'm sure you know Sam. Mm-hmm. Sam did one, and I think he was at a Barnes and Noble, and the woman, it's one of these it's one of these author horror story experiences, just like what we're sharing. And I think the person was looking for the book that was behind him, and it was right. So he had to get out of the way and reach it and give it to her. She had no interest in the book that he had written.
Wait, this is like almost like a rap battle. I did, you and I going back here. One of my first ever events was at the Mahopac Public Library, which is my hometown library in Mahopac, New York. Okay. Mm-hmm. Bad Guys won. Mets, kind of a Mets town, definitely a baseball town. I go back. They never advertised it. So the only way you would know I was appearing is if you were a psychic or a family member. I had 3 people, my mom, my dad, my wife, and then a kid I went to high school, sister just happened to be in the library. So she came up. And that was it. And that was in my hometown library. So that wasn't good.
Well, I've had a couple where, there's a rush of like 5 or 6 at the beginning. And the one that I remember the most, and I don't know if because you've done so many of these, is that you get the person who shows up who's really lonely. And they're just looking for somebody to talk to. And they're so happy that you're there and you don't want to be rude. But at the same time, you're like, will this person please leave? But then if they leave, you've got nobody.
I'd rather have nobody than one.
I hate to say it. I totally agree with you. I'll never forget this guy, because if I didn't leave or if the store hadn't closed, he would probably still be there talking to me right now. And that was in 2007.
I've had recently, I don't do signings like I used to because I'm not a celebrity. And the only way it works now is if you're a celebrity, if you're a celebrity chef. And the harsh reality of modern times, I looked at the list last week, the New York Times list. Mm-hmm. It's basically not all, but mostly either political celebrities, TV celebrities, people who didn't even write their own books. So it's by Eric Trump, but it's not.
Yep.
And so I'm just like, it doesn't make sense. I'm not even mad at the publishing companies. It doesn't make sense to fly me to Cleveland and then Toledo and then Detroit, paying for airfare, paying for lodging to sell at best 50 books at a store. At best. It just doesn't make sense. So you do the local, tell your friends and family to come out. I did 2 of them here. It was great. But like, I don't need to go to Cleveland and sit in an empty bookstore. I just don't. Like, I'm way past that ego-wise. I don't need to tell people I'm on a book tour. My big nightmare with this book is Amazon ran out of the book 4 days ago. So it's my first week. I'm actually devastated. This was going to be my best-selling book, and Amazon ran out, and it took 4 days to them to replenish the stock. So like, I feel like, and this isn't like I feel like I was on course to make the New York Times list, and then people just couldn't get the book anymore. And that actually,
well, I was when I was doing an intro for you, you're in this really rarefied community of people who are now known as authors.
I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, you are. I mean, you can be modest about it, but I would put you in the same category as Hampton Sides, John Krakauer, Eric Larson. There's not many of you guys. When Jeff Pearlman writes a book, there's interest based on your reputation just as a writer. And it used to be, obviously, we can go down this rabbit hole. Well, it used to be, it was this and this, and there's just not many of you guys left.
Yeah.
And I applaud the hell out of it. I think it's amazing, but there is that bittersweet feeling to it. And you wear your emotions on your sleeve on social media. How do you feel about that? To me, it's devolution of the industry.
Yeah, it's kind of funny in a way, and this is not like it started as an insult, as a compliment, and turned really sad because it's like
Yeah,
you're known as one of the book writers. And it's like, oh, that's cool.
it
Like
is cool.
whatever, Michael Lewis and Stephen King and all
Yeah.
that stuff, right? I'm obviously not in their sales class, but I'm saying these people who are known as authors, right? But then you realize there just aren't that many left. So like, it's like, it's like having the best magazine out in 2025. Like it's not the same. And the weird thing is, honest to God, I feel like what I'm best known for now, and this you could just stab me in the head with a knife if you want, is TikTok. Like I've gained a shitload of TikTok followers and I get recognized. I literally 2 days ago, I was on Balboa Island here in California, and a guy goes to me, "You look like Jeff Pearlman." And I said, "That's funny because I am Jeff Pearlman." Like, yeah, I follow you on TikTok. I get recognized for TikTok more than anything I've ever written, and that's like, here we are,
Did you have any I have not added TikTok. I have
Mhm.
not done it. And obviously I'm regional, I'm small. Like you
Doesn't
talked
matter.
about best known author, like columnist, who cares?
Yep.
And did you have any reluctance to embracing TikTok at all? I did.
Oh, my TikTok story is crazy, actually. Year and a half ago, hasn't been that long. I wrote on Twitter, which I've since left. I gave some advice to like young journalists who'd been laid
Mhm.
off, right?
Yeah. I
And
remember
this
this.
guy,
Yeah.
the Defector, the website, the Defector, which is all the old Deadspin douchebags are now in the Defector, right? They're not all douchebags, but they were always
Yeah, I
in.
know what you mean.
Some guy just blasted me in a column he wrote about why would you listen to this guy for social media advice? And blah blah blah. His name was Tom Lee, Ley, and I've never met him. And I was kind of like, to hell with this. I'm gonna join TikTok. And my son is like, don't do it. I'm like, no, I'm gonna do it. He's like, don't do it. And he's like, don't use filters and don't talk politics. I don't use filters. I do sometimes talk politics. And thanks to that guy calling me out, I've had kind of a reinvention. TikTok led to the YouTube series Pressbox Chronicles, which has been
Mhm.
great for me. I get paid now on TikTok. I get paid now to do the YouTube show. It's a nice, not getting rich off it, but it's a nice, get a couple $1,000 showing up every month that I didn't have before is cool. And also, like, I think it's opened me up to new readers a little bit. So, and it is a little like of reinforcement. I always thought TikTok was like Taylor Swift lip syncing, like
So
people, girls, my daughter lip syncing the K-pop songs. And really, people like the storytelling nature of it. So it's been really good for me. So thank you, Tom Lee, for being an asshole. That worked out. Also, I just want to say one thing that you would appreciate, Mac.
What's that?
That guy called me out. I emailed him to be like, hey, what the heck or whatever. He never responded. Then I emailed him to thank him because it inspired me and asked if he'd want to come on my podcast and just talk about it all. Never responded. So like, I feel like you and I were raised in this era of accountability. If nothing else, journalistic accountability. The calls
Oh,
suck. Not
absolutely.
always fun, but you do
Yep.
it. This guy just
Yep.
dodged me over and over again after ripping
That's
me.
pathetic. That's weak.
Yeah.
That's really weak, especially I think, because I remember you had a great back and forth on social media with Kurt Warner. That's when you were in Twitter.
Totally forgot about that until someone
Oh, that was
recently.
great. But it was really respectful.
Yeah, he was
And
nice about it. He was not a jerk at all.
not at all. Not
Yep.
at all. And I've done that a couple times where you have a respectful back and forth, and all it is just a disagreement. Especially
Yep.
this is just about sports. And for that guy, a journalist, to sit there and call you out, and then you say, "Hey, let's talk about this." That's a really interesting conversation. And to me, he sounds like he's just cowardly running from it, as opposed to stepping into it and say, yeah, this is why I said what I said. And you could have a really nice exchange where you could learn a little bit about the other and the other person's take on it. And instead, he's just like, no, I don't want to be called out.
It's also weird because like I've had my cowardly moments in life. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've had moments where I kind of I want to avoid this.
Yeah.
But this wasn't even scary. It's like a fellow journalist. Like, what are you
Right.
even nervous about? Why wouldn't you appear on the podcast? And even if you were making fun of me, it's cool. Like just talk about it. I don't know. It's just weird to me. Whatever.
No, I'm with you on that. In fact, but I do think you have to pass. I don't know how old that guy is, and I don't know. This is my own aging process. You do pass that threshold where you're so comfortable in your own skin and your own mistakes and your own shit, for lack of a better word, that you're cool talking about it, whatever it is. And that's a really empowering thing. And I don't know where you were when you crossed that threshold. I was later in life to do it, but you probably crossed over into that earlier than most, do you
Oh,
think?
same as you actually. I think with
Right.
age, somewhere along the line, you realize that like people like when you admit you were wrong. Like people actually respond to it very positively. And if you apologize, if you say that, like Kurt Warner, I think I said something about him that was probably kind of rude about his Hall of Fame. He shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. And he's like, hey, and like, also sometimes you don't think, you know what, Kurt Warner, that guy goes to the bathroom too. Like he's just a guy who played football and now he's on TV and he's a guy who goes home. And I make some snarky comment on social media about him because I don't think he's human. You know, I just don't think of it that way. And I think as you get older, you realize that we're all just human. Like people make comments about me and you, and they probably think, oh, this guy doesn't read it, or these guys don't read it. I'm like, I'm literally wearing my pajama pants right now in bed. You know, like I'm just literally
You
right
do
now.
have, wow, nice legs. You do have the greatest hat and t-shirt collection of anybody I've ever seen. How many sports hats do you have?
I probably have 50 now, but I do them for the show, the YouTube show. They've kind of like, now I feel challenged to never, I once wore the same hat twice. I was mad at myself. So I try not to.
What's the one you like the most?
I love the throwback Tampa Bay Buccaneers just because it reminds me of Ricky Bell and being a kid. The funny thing is I grew up, the only team I even care about remotely, and I exaggerate how much I care about, is the New York Jets. And I've always thought their uniforms and logo were super ugly. So, you know, I don't know what you wear. Like I thought this is interesting. It's just a Buffalo Bills hat because it's just kind of weird.
You know, it's funny. You mentioned something because you're wearing your Jets fandom on your sleeve, and I decided to do this. I just coincidentally lined up around the same time, which is I was born in Cincinnati. I don't know if you could see this. That's a Cincinnati Bengals Super Bowl champion pennant.
Yeah.
Right. That's champion. Right. So I've always wanted to get one of those things that said champion from the losing team. And I found it on Goodwill. Oh, surprise possession. But I got to tell you, I wasn't feeling your Jets pain at all when my Bengals went out there on Sunday and lost the most god-awful team in Cincinnati against your Jets. So in an awful off, who's worse, a Bengals fan or a Jets fan?
Oh, shut up, man. That's not even, are you joking? All right, time out. Time out. You've had Joe Burrow, you had Ken Anderson, and you had Boomer when he was in his prime, okay?
Yep.
The Jets had Nemeth, who was probably overrated, but the impact not overrated. In my life, the best Jet quarterback has probably been Ken O'Brien. The best.
You think he was better than Richard Todd, or?
Oh, definitely. He might have been worse than Vinny Testaverde at his best with the Jets. But it was like Sanchez and Darnold and Ray Lucas and Browning Nagel and Glenn Foley. And you've also gone to 2 Super Bowls. Like, I know you lost. No, you've been to 3 Super Bowls in your lifetime.
3, lost all of them. And all of them were kicking the nuts.
Better to have loved and lost. And also, like, I think their helmets are really cool. And best of all, you have a Delaware Blue Hen starting a quarterback for you right now.
That's true. That's true. The pride of Delaware University, Mr. Joe
University
Flacco.
of Delaware there, Mac.
University that's big. I know. All right, let's get into this. I know you have a life. The last time I had a chance to visit with you about this, you were thinking about doing a book on Tupac Shakur. And I remember thinking, he's going to do a book on Tupac Shakur. And then my next thought is, that's how much fucking power Jeff Pearlman has with the publishing house. They're like, yeah, we're going to pick this white sports writer to do a book on a deceased, incredibly popular hip hop artist. Great idea, Jeff. Go ahead and do it. So you did it. Was it a hard sale at all with your agent or publisher?
I mean, my agent did say to me, understandably, he goes, you know, you are a white sports writer. That's kind of a weird fit, which I think is a fair point. I think that's what an agent should do, is make that kind of point.
Right.
Yeah, I had to push my publisher a little bit, but it wasn't that bad. I basically signed a 3-book deal, which is the first time I've ever had that. And the one of the other books is a sports book, and then the middle one is a vanity project memoir about my early journalism career that 4 people will read. But the Tupac book, maybe 5 if Mac buys a copy, and maybe 6 if Mac buys a copy for himself.
Well, Amazon's going to run out, so
yeah,
better get on
not
it
of
now.
that book. I just really like Tupac's iconic, which helps, obviously. There's a mystique to him that helps, obviously. It's not like saying I'm going to write the Nelly biography or like the Young MC biography. Like Tupac has a mystique about him, and he's been written about, but I just I always thought, I thought there was something there that wasn't being tapped into, you know? And there was a book there's a writer named Kevin Powell, who was a hip hop writer for a long time. He wrote for different hip hop magazines and music magazines back in the day. And for years on his website, he had working on a Tupac book, right? For years. And I kept waiting for it. And I kind of assumed he wasn't going to do it at some point. And I just thought, well, if this guy's not going to do it and no one's going to do it, and I'm just going to do it. So I told my agent I want to do it, and he got me a Tupac deal. I made a pretty impassioned pitch, although I never had to write a proposal. It's the first book I did not have to write a proposal.
Really?
Which I have to say, Mac, is a delight.
Oh, I can only imagine how much that time that saved. So a couple months ago, Mark Kriegel, best-selling author, lives in
Right.
Los Angeles now, former New
Great
Yorker.
guy.
Great
Great
guy.
guy. Mhm.
New Yorker, wrote a book about Mike Tyson. I
Mhm.
have to tell you, my interest level in Tyson was always kind of minimal, but I opened it up and I read the whole thing
It's
like
great.
that. It's
It's great.
great.
Yeah.
And he interviewed everybody and their brother, and he had a relationship with Tyson, but he mentioned something in there that crossed paths with this book, which is he talked about prominent young people who just exploded onto the scene and almost became too famous.
Mhm.
And they all died young.
Mhm.
Elvis Presley died young in his early 40s. Marilyn Monroe died very young. Obviously, Tupac died very young. And
Mhm.
Mike Tyson is the only one who's still alive, which is crazy to think that he's still alive given all the things that he'd done. But in death, Elvis, Marilyn Monroe, and Tupac become something, as all deceased do, that maybe they weren't. Is Tupac now, today in 2026, more of a myth than he was when he died as a man?
Certainly. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Like, I think in a way, James Dean is the best example.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
because if you think James Dean had a pretty slim body of work, right?
Mhm.
But he happened to be a really good looking, cool actor. And, he died young. So it's the mystique of James Dean. James Dean lives to 80, right? Like, there's no mystique anymore. There's no mystique. He was just this guy. Oh, remember? And then later in his career, he did 2 episodes of Law and Order. And then he did, you know what I mean? Like, that's
Yes.
how it goes.
Yep.
Like 100% that's how it goes. And even like in hip hop, like if Chuck D of Public Enemy had died at 25,
Mhm.
people would be like the mythology of Chuck D. And he was this guy, fight the power. And what would he have done? And there'd be these books. But now Chuck D is 60 something years old and he still raps and you see him commentating. And he's just Chuck D, 60-year-old guy with a great legacy, but not a mystique, not an air of, wow, what could have been. So I just think when Tupac died young, um, along with that always comes mystique and what could have been and what would have been. And also, to some degree, an exaggeration. Like people forget, the number one thing people forget when people die young, like actually young, not 40, but 25,
Yeah.
is you're only 25 and you don't know anything about anything. Like you're 25 years old. I think
Yeah.
about myself at 25. I thought I was like the man. I didn't know shit about shit. I'm sure you were the same way. You don't know shit about shit. You think you do. You have a lot of plans. You think you're smarter than everyone else. You think you're going to be better than everyone else. You think you're going to do this and that. I'm going to have this car by 30 and I'm going to be running this and I'm going to be blah, blah, blah. But you don't know. And I think that's the same with Tupac. Like he had a lot of plans. He was a genius. He was a brilliant writer. He was really smart. He had no impulse control whatsoever. He put himself in some really great situations and some really bad situations. But at the end of the day, he was a human being and a 25-year-old kid.
One thing that I've noticed about when I go to concerts, and this is something that I've only noticed, I started to take my daughter to shows. And I took her to young people shows like Olivia Rodrigo and Taylor
Yeah.
Swift. And I've taken her old people shows. I've taken her to AC/DC and the Doobie Brothers. And the one thing I noticed, Jeff, is how often, and I asked her about this, is that I can't understand the lyrics at a lot of times. Now, sometimes that has to do with the setup, the sound, whatever. I also know this. Well, a lot of times I'll listen to hip hop and I'm like, I can't understand because they speak so fast.
Uh-huh.
When you were exposed, when you started to listen to hip hop music and rap music, could you immediately pick up the lyrics and what they were saying? Because a lot of times you mentioned Tupac as a phenomenal writer. Could you make sense of what he was writing?
Well, it is. First of all, you sound like a grandpa saying that.
Oh, I totally do. I
I
totally
can't
do.
understand what this Olivia Rodrigo is saying. Can she slow
No,
down?
no. I want to be fair. Even when I went to Bruce Springsteen concerts 25 years ago, I'm like, what? If I didn't know the song, I'm like,
Sure.
I don't know if I was going to know what song that was.
So, all right. As an example, my first hip hop song that really blew up for me was a song by Public Enemy called Black Steel in the Hour of the Chaos. And it's about basically a prison riot and a prison escape. And Chuck D was a rapper who really elongated his words. So he was like, I got a letter from the government the other day. I opened and read it. It said they were suckers, right? That's how it starts, right?
Okay.
And Tupac, in a lot of ways, is the same way. He kind of is like the song Brenda's Got a Baby, which is his first big song. It's Brenda's got a baby, but Brenda's barely got a brain. A damn shame. The girl can hardly spell her name. So it kind of depends on who you're listening to. Like back in the day, I remember loving like Parents Just Don't Understand by DJ Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince.
Right.
Parents are the same no matter time or place. So it kind of depends. Like rap has gotten a lot more mumbly since Tupac died. And there's a certain genre of hip hop that I think Tupac, I'm guessing, would come back and probably wouldn't even understand what's going on. So they're just different artists and different approaches. I do think hip hop in concert is much easier to understand than a lot of singers. Like, try telling me what Kurt Cobain was saying in Smells Like Teen Spirit,
No clue.
or even Pearl Jam singing like
Oh,
Even Flow. Like,
100%.
right. So I do feel like at least hip hop being more spoken word, as much spoken word as it is music, is a little easier to understand, but it really depends on the artist. And also, nothing's wrong with going back and just reading the lyrics, which now you can do
Right.
easily, But no, mostly I understood the lyrics, but I was listening pretty intently,
So one thing that you've done as a sports journalist is that you've interviewed most people that you've interviewed. I'd say most, but probably at least 50% are either current or former Black athletes, right?
Sure.
And for anybody who goes into professional sports journalism as white people, you better get used to, you're going to be interviewing a lot of Black athletes. And sometimes there are cultural differences that you have to kind of navigate and figure out.
Yep.
That's just, I've talked about this with young sports journalists, aspiring sports journalists all the times, Jeff. But now you've gone into a place where I can't imagine there are many white guys in that profession, in that world. Was it ever awkward? Were any of those ever awkward at all when you started this project?
It's funny. It's been more awkward promoting it because a lot of, you see social media and the term, I'd never, you and I, again, most of the people we've probably written about have either been Black or Latino, if you think about it, or in some cases, Japanese. I covered a lot of it. So the term I've been getting is culture vulture, which is basically someone who comes in and tries stealing or capitalizing on another person's culture. And I hate it. It stings. And also, like, in a way, there's some truth to it. Like, I am a white writer coming in and writing about not just a rap artist, but a cultural icon, and not just a cultural icon, but meant a ton for many young Black men and women coming up, especially with his ties to his mother, who was a Black Panther and really taught this sort of these lessons of self-empowerment. So I actually do understand where it's coming from. I did not get it working on the book. And I think I had two things going for me. One is Winning Time was out when I was working on a lot of the book. And Winning Time just gave me a lot of cred. Like, it just gave me some cultural cred. And when I brought it up early, which I started to do all the time, I'd be like, I don't know if you watch HBO, but there's a show, Winning Time. Oh, I love Winning Time. Well, that was my book. What? You wrote that book? You always got to use stuff like that. And then number two, that I think being a little older, you sort of just learn how to approach people. And I think, to me, as I said over and over again during these interviews, I'd be like, look, man, I am a white sports writer. There's no denying or hiding this. Not even trying to. I was like, but you will never find anyone more interested. I said that all the time. You'll never find anyone more interested in what you have to say than me. Never. You'll never. I want to know like, I went to Marin City, where Tupac grew up, for a spell, and met with some of the old crack dealers from Marin City. And I would sit with them and I'd be like, look, man, I would literally say, my dad's name was Stanley. He was an accountant. We were a Jewish family in rural New York. I never had to worry about my mom becoming a crack addict. I always knew my parents had money for me to go to college. I am a 180. My life is a 180 from yours, but you'll never meet anyone more interested. And that took me a long way. And I do think my dad died during the course of writing this book, which cut my heart out. And my dad used to always say to me, like, what's the one thing people like talking about the most? And the answer is themselves. And if you're willing to listen to people, they're pretty happy to talk to you, especially if they know you had a TV show. So,
okay, it's break time here on the Sunset Lounge, which means I have to do a little promoting myself. All of the shows here on the Sunset Lounge are free. We are available now on every major and minor, no disrespect to that, platform where you can find podcasts. YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, patreon.com/Sunset Lounge DFW, on and on and on. If you can think of a podcast platform, the Sunset Lounge is on it, which includes shows such as The Clubhouse, featuring Rob, Alex, and Don, their takes on pop culture, sports, movies, and wrestling. Beer 30 Sports O'Clock, featuring Ziggy. Ziggy catches you up on all things beer, gambling, and football. Not necessarily in that order. Al Maximo, our Spanish-speaking language show, and I'm still a little annoyed that I have yet to be asked to be a guest on that, even though I don't speak Spanish. They discuss football, soccer, F1. This is, of course, hosted by friends Victor Villalba, Spanish voice of the Dallas Cowboys and Dallas Mavericks, who are off to a scintillating 1-3 start. Carlos Nava, ESPN Deportes, NFL, MLB, NBA, boxing, and soccer. I believe he's at the World Series right now. The dude works all the time. Also, Norm Hitzges has come out of retirement to join us with his weekly, I think it's tri-weekly podcast, where he talks a little bit about DFW sports, amongst other things. It's great to have Norm back on the air. Also, we will be launching soon, I believe in this week or next, Area 51 featuring John Henry, longtime Fort Worth journalist who goes back into the world of true crime. If true crime is your thing, and I don't get it, some people love true crimes. Well, sometimes they're fascinating. Uh, John did this podcast a couple of years ago for a different platform, and now he's brought it back. And give it a listen. Area 51, as well as a soccer show featuring Mr. Taylor Kern, and of course, I don't know why I always wait till the last one because it's on the last page, and you'd think by now I would have memorized this. Your Dark Companion, featuring Mr. Mike Reiner, the award-winning Your Dark Companion. Now, back to my show.
You had almost 700 interviews for this book.
Mm-hmm.
And, someone who's written a couple books and interviewed people, I'm so impressed and inspired by that persistence to interview anybody who has any tangential relationship with the subject. It astounds me because of the time required and the knocking on the doors required. Was there anybody you didn't get, Jeff, that you really wanted, or you thought, well, they'd be a good ad? Is there anybody you didn't get? Because it sounds to me like you got everybody.
No, many, many, many people.
Oh.
Many. I didn't get his aunt. I want to talk to his aunt Glow. Oh. I didn't get anyone from you'll like this journalistically. I want to get someone from the Tupac Shakur estate, right? And the estate is now run by two people who are not related to Tupac, and then his aunt Glow a little bit. And I reached out to someone from the estate, and they were nice. They weren't jerks or anything. But the woman said to me, we might talk to you, but first you have to provide us with a list of everyone you interviewed for your book.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not giving you a list of my interviews. I'm sorry, I'm not doing that. He went to high school with Jada Pinkett. I didn't get Jada Pinkett. I went to the Miami Festival of Books because she was having an event, and I thought maybe I could get her there. I bought my Jada Pinkett signed book. I sat in this event. It was me and about 300 women. Like, I had to be the only guy there. And it was weird because Jada's talking about the keys to a good marriage. Like, a lot of it was like the keys to a good marriage. And women are like, you preach, girl, you speak. And I'm like, what Twilight Zone have I entered? A, that I'm at the Jada Pinkett book event, and B, that she's talking to people about how to have a good marriage, and C, they're eating it up. Like, what is going on here? It was weird.
Is there any favorite anecdote that you uncovered that was, I don't know, just something that resonated with you? Maybe won't with the general population, but for you, it meant everything.
I mean, man, there were a lot. You heard the Brenda's Got a Baby story.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I won't even go into that, but sure, that was a big one for me. Another big one was, this is like the amount of work you put into these things. I feel like other writers appreciate it, but most people don't. And they're like, people will be like, oh, you're just blank. You're just capitalizing. You're just trying to get rich. You're just trying to blank. And they don't understand how much you bleed on these things, right? Like, sincerely. Yeah. I flew to Lumberton, North Carolina from California because Tupac's mom was from there. And I wanted to dig through the archives of the library. And I went to Lumberton Library, show up, it opens at 9 a.m. I'm there at 9:01. And the archives machine, the newspaper machine, is broken. Literally, it says machine is out of order. I'm like, freaking fuck. So he had some relatives who lived in Lumberton, some cousins, and I went to visit them. And one of the guys is hired by the Tupac Shakur estate to care for his mom's old house. His mom, Afeni Shakur, before she died, bought a house in her old hometown, built a house, beautiful home on a large swath of land. And this guy was a caretaker, and he's like, do you want to, I have to go over to the house today. Do you just want to come with me and you can see the house? And I was like, oh yeah, that'd be great. So I go to Afeni Shakur's house and I walk through the house. I'm in her house, Tupac's mom's house, which is really cool. And all these, she died in 2016. So she's been dead for almost a decade, but a lot of her possessions are still in boxes in the corners, and I'm taking notes. And then the guy said to me, do you want to see Tupac's grave? And I'm like, that's weird because Tupac, everyone knows his ashes were spread off the Pacific in a ceremony in Malibu. And he basically told me Afeni saved some of the ashes and buried them on the property. So I'm like, yeah. So if anyone, to all you young journalists out there, if anyone ever says, do you want to see the grave of someone you're writing about, always say yes. So I follow him out, and there's a tombstone on the property, Tupac Shakur, Tupac Amar Shakur, birth, the date, death. And she buried some of his ashes there, and I had it confirmed. So I'm standing above Tupac Shakur's grave on an abandoned property in Lumberton, North Carolina. Now imagine if Marilyn Monroe was buried in somewhere in San Angelo, Texas, just happened to be somewhere, or Jim Morrison is in Brewster, New York, behind a store. Oh yeah, we just buried him here. That would be the equivalent of this, Tupac Shakur's grave. And standing above it, I was like, man, all right, this trip was worth it,
1 out of 10. How fucked up was his childhood and upbringing?
10 is the most.
Yeah, 1 out of 10. You gonna go 12?
240. 240.
Was it worse than Mike Tyson's?
Right there with it. Like right there with it. Among other things. First of all, again, his mom, when she was pregnant with him, was literally in jail.
Yeah.
He was born in abject poverty to a single mom, Black Panther, who they never had a steady home. He probably went to, overall, I would say 12 different schools.
Wow.
Never had a father figure around. His first sexual experience came at 14 with a cousin. His second sexual experience came at 15 with a friend of his mother. They had rats running up and down the floorboard of their Baltimore row house. No heat, no air conditioning. Bounced around from school to school. Just a brutally, brutally hard existence of poverty. He was a kid with buck feet, bad teeth, thrift store clothes, no athleticism, kind of an ugly duckling until he found himself. So just the absolute picture of the worst childhood. Tupac's it, for real.
I don't know if anybody's asked you this or not, but you wrote about a subject where there's a particular use of a word that's common, and that's the N-word,
Yeah.
which for a white person is a no-fly zone. Was that a challenge at all to navigate for you, either in interviews or writing it?
You know what's funny is people ask me, did you do the audio for your book? I'm like, no, I'm not doing the audio. I did not do the audio. No, you have a good voice. You should do the audio. Yeah, I'm not doing this one.
I'm good.
Imagine reading this book. Here's like his second album title is strictly for my blank. Imagine me like, and then Tupac did the album strictly for my N-word. And every time it's like N-word. I couldn't do it. It wasn't. Yeah, that was not. I was going to call Mac, see if Mac wanted to do it. Get him.
Right. I want to see if Mac wants to end his career.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I grew up in a town where people, not myself, in my house, we knew, and my best friend was my closest friend growing up was one of the 2 black kids in my town, but where the N-word was used all the time, and you grew up hearing it all the time. I don't know if you grew up in a world like that, but it was.
No, I grew up, but this is not something that I remember we would use the word occasionally, and I had black friends. I grew up in a pretty integrated school system, and when I was in middle school, there's like 4 or 5 words that we used, and I didn't use it often, and I do remember being scolded by my mom when she heard me use it, and I was probably in the 6th grade, and then I never did again.
Yeah,
and it wasn't often, but no one thought anything of it.
You don't know until you know. You don't know until you know. I remember when I was a kid. I mean, I grew up in a pretty freaking racist town, and my best friend John Powell, he actually introduced me to hip hop. It's totally a cliche, but he was the one who introduced me to the music. I would not be writing this book probably if it weren't for John Powell. I'd be listening to Whitesnake and Aerosmith and all the crap music they listened to. Instead, I was getting into hip hop. But I mean, I remember my brother coming home from school one day and telling a racist joke at the table, and us all just being stunned. And for some reason, I don't know if you experience this. I feel like for me, being brought up in an almost all white environment, becoming a sports fan was kind of a salvation for me. As cliche and trite as that sounds, I remember loving like reading Sports Illustrated and seeing like my favorite player is Ken Griffey Sr. My favorite athlete of all time is Ken Griffey Sr. My second is Gary Templeton, and my third is J.R. Richard. Those are my 3 guys, right?
J.R. Richards was a badass.
Yeah. But what I think I really was drawn to them initially was like afros, lamb chop sideburns, chains, Gary with 2 R's, Gary Templeton telling the fans, giving them the middle finger and being dragged off the field. Like it sounds weird. I love badass Black and Latino athletes. I love names like Joaquin and Malik and Gary with 2 R's. And I love seeing like 5 wristbands and the styles of like the afro sitting all cool, the hat sitting atop.
Yeah.
Like, I loved that stuff. Like, I didn't just like loved. I don't know why. I can't explain it to you. But I feel like I was given by sports this access to something that really intrigued me. And because of that, it sounds corny, but I really believe it. And then listening to hip hop music, and all of a sudden, I had a teacher, Mr. McGee. I swear to God, history teacher, 8th grade, I believe, Mailpack Junior High School, who taught us that blacks can't ski or swim. And everyone's just laughing.
Wow.
literally told us in a class. I remember it vividly. I used to work in a reform school. The funniest thing, we would take these kids on ski trips and the black kids can't ski. Blacks can't ski. It's so funny. That was the world I grew up in, right? True story. That's where I grew up in. So like going to the Mail Pack Library on my own, no one in my family cared about sports at all except for me, digging through the old SIs. And I remember seeing like Wendell Tyler and just thinking, God, the name Wendell Tyler is so cool. Even though if you think about it, Wendell is not a cool name, but on him, it seemed cool.
Yep.
It seemed like Jackie Harris, right? And like Freeman McNeil and
Jackie Slater. What about Jackie Slater? Yeah.
They were just cool. Like they were cooler than us. And there was something about that just did it for me. And I just really think opened my mind in a world that wasn't very open-minded, you know? And like, you would never in my town, you would never take, like if you were one of the 2 black kids in my grade, you were only going to the prom if you could find a date who was black. A white girl was not going to go to you. Like that's just a fact. This is a fact. That's just what it was. I remember my friend could not get a date. And he was like a smart, good looking. He went to the Naval Academy, like very smart, far more accomplished than me, couldn't get a date for the prom. That was the world I grew up in. And I honestly think sports and then hip hop opened my mind in ways that it probably wouldn't have been opened.
You know, for me, that athlete was Eric Davis, the former longtime Major League Baseball player.
He was cool.
I loved Eric. Oh, I thought Eric Davis was the biggest badass ever. And then I met him one time. But, he was amazing. He was so good. And he got injured and he bounced around a lot of different teams. But boy, when he was young, God, he was good. And I revered him. And then I met him when he was with the Giants.
He was a nice guy. Oh, really? I always liked Eric Davis. Was he
when I met him, he was a little edgy that day. And then at the end of the interview, and I said, you know, I got to tell you this. I used to walk around high school with your baseball card in my wallet. And at one point, this is a true story, I had E44 carved in the back of my head. And then his attitude changed. Then he called in security.
Then he called in security and said, "You get the guy away from me. This is a little off." Wait,
no, but
Mac, I'm being serious about this. I bet you agree with me. I just think like the one thing we have been granted access to, but I really mean this. Like, I think a lot of people would look at an athlete like Eric Davis or Bo Jackson or Barry Bonds or Bobby Bonds or whoever and be like, God, Reggie Jackson, God, why are these guys such assholes? Like, why are they such a dick? And then you do this job and you learn a little about their story and their background. It even applies to Tupac when it's like, God, why was he this way and that way? And it's like, he grew up with rats running through his house with no air conditioning and no heat, okay? To a single mom who was a crack addict. Did you expect him to be well-adjusted? Would you be well-adjusted? And most people don't, they just see the asshole or they just see the jerk or they just see the behavior. And I feel like one thing we've been fortunate about through this profession is we're able to at least have a slice of understanding to what they went through and that it's not, if it were us and what the experiences of being poor and black and traumatized in America is drastically different than being me with my parents knowing I was going to go to college and have a meal every night that would be warm and somewhere tasty.
It's a different life. It's a different experience. It's a different America. It's a different world. And I've tried to tell people that who get irritated with some of these guys sometimes. And, you know, I remember having a conversation with a longtime NFL cornerback. He's a great guy named Terrence Newman. Terrence played, you remember Terrence?
Dallas Cowboy in Cincinnati.
That's right. Yeah. And just a wonderful, wonderful
Kansas
guy.
State?
Kansas State. Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
a
You
loser.
got it.
Mac,
and so
I'm a loser.
No. He was in the NFL for like almost 20 years.
I know, but how many losers know he went to Kansas State, played for the Cowboys and the Bengals? I mean, come on.
Not many.
4% a guess, maybe?
Yeah. Do you know his last team that he finished his career with?
Panthers?
I believe it was the Vikings. So anyways, I called the Vikings and I said, can I get him? And increasingly, Jeff, getting these guys to do interviews is just becoming, because they don't need me anymore. I need them more than they need me. And, but he called me because he remembered me when I covered the team. And he said something to me that was really profound because Terrence grew up and there's some real challenges there. But Terrence's point was about, because your point about Bobby Bonds or Barry Bonds or any of these other guys is right. And Terrence's point was, you get to a certain point in your life of adulthood where it doesn't matter anymore. You know right from wrong. And I do think sometimes that we have to account for those upbringings for certain guys or whomever it is and give them that space to say, listen, I understand why, but I also like, dude, you're 25 years old. You're 30 years old. It's not about get over it, but it's about saying can't necessarily always use that as an excuse or a fallback to be a bad person or
And
to
I
be
don't
a
think
dick.
people are, I don't think necessarily, because I don't think a lot of people think of themselves as bad people. Like Reggie Jackson has treated people notoriously assholey for years, right?
Yep.
I don't think you growing up with a ton of whatever, racism or hatred or whatever, gives you the right eternally to treat people like shit.
I agree.
But I also think it helps explain maybe where that comes from and maybe where the resentment comes from.
Can you
I'm like,
explain to me why Barry Bonds, you told a story, I think on Pressbox Chronicles or whatever, about Barry
yeah.
Bonds and the Pittsburgh Pirates
Oh,
photographer.
no, Barry Bonds is an asshole.
And
He's
I'm
a
like,
dick.
I can't, I'm sorry. There's no way. And I remember interviewing guys at the Giants who played with him, and they all understood, like, this is a bad guy.
Yeah, he was a bad guy.
I mean, but
He, in a way, is an interesting mixture because Bonds was a mixture of a dad who faced a ton of racism, right?
Yep.
And yet, so Bonds has that experience mixed with being kind of an entitled brat. So he had both mixed into one stew. It's an unusual stew of, supposedly he's kind of nice now. Supposedly people say he's much easier to deal with, but what do I don't know.
Well, they all do that. Once they follow the limelight and they realize nobody cares about who they are anymore. Look at the transformation Randy Johnson has undergone.
Yeah.
Right? As, oh yeah, I'll sit down, I'll take pictures. This is the guy who punched a camera.
Yeah.
Right? All right, let's finish this up.
Right.
Because I've kept you too long. Did this book make you sad?
Oh, it's the saddest book I've ever written. And the whole experience made me sad. And my different friends who read it, who work in hip hop, are like, it's like learning that Santa Claus doesn't exist. Like it was, yeah, profoundly. First of all, he dies at the end and he dies at 25 years old. So like he died before he was even a fully formed adult in a lot of ways.
Right.
And also just again, like reading about the trauma after trauma after trauma. I think when I entered this, I did think of Tupac largely as like Thug Life Tupac, and I get around Tupac and this guy and the women love him and he's in these movies. At the end of the day, man, he was just a traumatic figure who died far too young. It sucks. So yes.
Who is the interview that you have not had a chance to do yet, but is still on your bucket list? Not as it relates to any particular subject, but just that one person that you really, really want to interview, and they're still alive, and there's still a chance, but you haven't had a chance to do it yet.
Oh, Trump. He's a I swear to God, Trump, 100% Trump. I would love to
pay
Trump.
so much money to see you do that.
Well, because you know what bothers me? Like, I don't know, Mac. I feel like it needs to be a sports writer who actually gives Trump a good interview, because all these people are a bunch of freaking cowards and they're like, oh, sir, blah, 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 blah. And like, we're used to at least holding people to account, and we're at least used to confrontation, and we're used to being like, we've all been demeaned. If you're a sports writer, especially coming up when we did, you've been demeaned, you've been shit on, you've been marginalized, you've been put in your place. So like, but we just bounce back from it. So like, I'm tired of all these people being so deferential in their interviews. Like, he's lying. If you're lying, fucking call someone out on lying. Like, be blunt and honest and direct, and stop like, okay, next question. Like always moving on to the next question when he lied. Like, I just say like people from our background and our upbringing are ideal, but instead he goes on TV and he insults the interviewer and he just goes to the next person. I would take Trump in a second.
The one that
I'm not saying
disappointed me
maybe
the
he'd
most.
walk all over me. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The one that disappointed me the most, I have a lot of respect for 60 Minutes and Leslie Stahl and a lot of the great, because a lot of them are, John Wortham obviously has worked with him for a while. He's a contributor. They're terrific interviewers. And Leslie, I don't know, I was really bummed the way Leslie handled interviews with him. And
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
That one was like,
you know what's interesting? I had no problem. Like, a lot of people were mad 60 Minutes was doing Marjorie Taylor Greene. I had zero problem with it. I think she is an important person in America.
So
I think but like, I agree with you. The interview itself, it was like, so you're just gonna let her say this stuff and not even, So I'm with you. Yeah.
Okay. Last question. What's your next book?
My next book is a memoir about my first 2.5 years as a journalist in Nashville. It is a book that I think maybe 12 people will buy, as I said. I have
I'm buying. Well, I'm going to make sure that Amazon sells out.
Oh, man, I think they did sell out. Now my book isn't available.
When is it going to be out?
I don't know, 2 years. It's due in January. Yeah, I've been kind of messing with it. It's a hard book to write.
I know you are beaten down from this process, but I want to thank you very much for giving me your time. Congratulations on the book.
I mean, Mac, I'm being serious about this. Like, we are like, it's different. Like, we're all in the same gang. Like, we're all like and to be honest with you, at the end of the day, the people who have helped me the most with this book are people in sports. Like, cause it's like, it's like a kinship among men and women.
Well, you're horrible with compliments, and I'm going to give you one that's a lesson that you did. And I use this for my intro. When I met you at the Texas Rangers clubhouse, I was a little intimidated to go up to you.
Oh my God. What?
I know, right? I know that I understand
I'm very intimidating.
that.
Very intimidating.
No, it's not, because I knew who you were. I mean, I knew you by your reputation, and a colleague of mine, T.R. Sullivan, who you know, T.R. said, yeah, go up to him. He's a great guy. And I didn't know. And it just, if you're nice to people, it just reaffirms, just be nice to people. 100%. And I understand times it's really hard. It's really hard sometimes. I mean, so if you can be nice to people like you have done, obviously, over a long, great best-selling career, it will work out. I don't know about every time, but most of the time. And so I'm really grateful for that, and the fact that you've always been very, very generous with your time.
I know, but Mac, I just want to say, I'm being serious about this. I feel like I actually find it weird when people say that, because like,
why?
Because like, you're as accomplished as I am, if not more so. So no, I'm being serious. No, don't deflect on it. No, and even like, but I want to say more importantly, what you said is 100% true. And it's just like, it's 1,000% true. If you treat people kindly and you're decent to people, people remember that. And there's no reason to big league people, or I don't even understand people who do that. Like anyone, like I stopped being intimidated by fame a long time ago, because like, what am I intimidated by? Like, what makes you any more valuable than me, or me more valuable than someone else? We're all going to die one day. We all go to the bathroom. We all it's ridiculous. It's this created construct in society that makes no sense. So like, to me, talking to you is like, wow, man, look at all he's written, blah, blah, blah. I swear to God, not just saying that. So I appreciate your kind words, but to me, we're all just in the same gaggle of, losers trying to write.
Well, congratulations again. My best to you and your family. Thanks so much for your time. And I look forward to bugging you down the road.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Tip.
That was great, by the way. Thank you so much.
You what I did wrong, and this life goes on. I don't know how I'ma end, and this life goes on. I ain't trying to lose my friends. Hope God keep blessing me.
This is a Stolen Water Media production.